I was sitting in my pickup truck 2 miles from home watching my own front door on a 7-inch screen. It was a Tuesday morning in late March. The kind of morning I used to spend in the garage with a cup of black coffee, maybe pulling the carburetor on the old Chevy, or just sitting on the tailgate listening to the neighborhood wake up. Instead, I was parked behind a Whataburger off Highway 90, watching a locksmith bolt a shiny new smart lock onto a door I had hung myself in 1997. My name is Clifford Holt. I'm 68 years old. I spent 30 years as a criminal investigation agent for the IRS, which means I did not just chase tax cheats. I followed money. I found the lies buried underneath the numbers. I watched men in expensive suits build entire lives on paper that did not exist. And when the paper trail ran out, they always thought they had won. They never did. It started the way these things always do, small, easy to explain away. Garrett Pruitt, my son-in-law, began dropping little comments maybe 8 months ago. Cliff, you left the garage door open again. Dad, Nadine said you missed your doctor's appointment twice this month. Always said with that concerned look he had spent years perfecting. Eyebrows pulled together, voice soft and careful, like a man choosing his words out of love rather than strategy. He was good at it. I will give him that. My daughter Nadine, she is 36, got her mother Norma's eyes and Norma's instinct to believe the best in people. She started calling more often, checking in, asking if I was eating right, sleeping okay, keeping up with the yard. I knew she was not the problem. She loved me the way a daughter loves a father who showed up. She was just married to a man who had learned exactly how to use that love as a lever. I first noticed something real in January. I had taken the truck in for an oil change at a shop on Bissonnet, and when I pulled into my driveway that evening and got out to check the tires, I found a GPS tracker zip-tied underneath the rear bumper. Small black rectangle about the size of a lighter, military grade. Not the kind of thing you pick up off Amazon for $30. The kind of thing somebody orders when they want to know your patterns. Where you go, how long you stay. I stood in the driveway in the cold and held it in my hand for a long time. I thought about 30 years of cases. I thought about every fraud I had ever unwound and how they all started exactly the same way. One small thing that did not fit. One number that was off by a fraction. One name that appeared twice when it should have appeared once. The fraud itself was never the first thing you found. The first thing you found was just the edge of it. I put the tracker back exactly where it was. Then I went inside, poured a cup of coffee, and called Nolan Vick. Nolan and I had worked together at IRS Criminal Investigation for 22 years before he retired and went private. He is 64, built like a fire hydrant, and he has the kind of patience that makes even experienced prosecutors uncomfortable. When I told him what I had found, he did not say, "Are you sure?" or "Maybe there's an explanation." He said, "Give me a few days. Don't touch anything." 4 days later, Nolan called me back. He had pulled Garrett's financial records through a title search, a business registry cross-reference, and a contact he still had at a private credit bureau. What he found took me a minute to absorb, even though part of me already knew something like it was coming. Garrett Pruitt had borrowed $340,000 from a man named Lionel Voss, a real estate developer out of Dallas who had been building luxury condo projects along the Texas Gulf Coast for the past decade. The loan was not documented as a personal loan. It was structured as a development advance, meaning Garrett had promised Voss something as collateral against future delivery. Not his own money, not his own property. Mine, my 0.8-acre corner lot in southwest Houston. The house Norma and I bought in 1989, paid off in 2009, the house where I built a workbench in the garage and a tire swing in the backyard, and taught Nadine to ride a bike in the driveway on a Saturday afternoon in 1995, while Norma watched from the porch steps. Garrett had apparently represented to Voss that the property would be available for transfer within the calendar year. He had borrowed $340,000 against a house that was not his, and now Voss was pressing him to deliver. Nolan also found something else. 2 months before I found that tracker under my bumper, Garrett had made contact with a Dr. Aldridge, a physician who ran a small private practice in the Heights, and who had a reputation, according to Nolan's contact, for providing informal cognitive assessments for families navigating estate transitions. That was the phrase in his practice materials. Estate transitions. Garrett had not mentioned any of this to me. He had not mentioned it to Nadine either, as far as I could tell. He was building a file before anyone knew there was a file being built. I sat with that information for 2 days before I made my next call. I called Philip Arden on a Wednesday morning before 7 a.m. Philip had handled Norma's estate when she passed 3 years ago. He is a quiet man, the kind of attorney who never raises his voice because he has never needed to. When I laid out what Nolan had found, he listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "How much time do you think you have?" I told him Garrett was moving carefully, but he was also under financial pressure from Voss. That combination, in my experience, meant someone was going to make a mistake soon. Careful people under pressure always do. Philip said, "Then we move first." 72 hours later, the Holt Family Property Trust was signed, notarized, irrevocable, and registered with Harris County. The house was no longer in my name personally. It sat inside the trust, and the trust had one clause that mattered above everything else. No transfer, no lien, no sale could be initiated without my living, competent, and documented consent. Verified through a biometric authentication process Philip had structured specifically for this purpose. If someone tried to file a deed against the property without going through that process, the title company would flag it automatically. I did not tell Nadine. That was the hardest part of those 2 weeks, harder than finding the tracker, harder than reading Nolan's report. Nadine called me every few days, asking how I was, and I could hear in her voice that Garrett had been working on her. She mentioned once, carefully, that she had been reading about planning ahead for older parents and that she wanted to talk sometime about what my wishes were. She said it the way someone says something when they have been coached to say it. I told her I appreciated it and we would talk soon. I did not tell her what I knew because I needed her outside of it. If Garrett suspected she was aware, he would change his approach. And more importantly, I did not want my daughter standing in a courtroom someday trying to explain why she knew and said nothing. I was going to make sure that when this came apart, Nadine was on the right side of the line with clean hands. Garrett made his move in the second week of March. He came by on a Sunday afternoon with a manila folder and a pen. He said the papers were a voluntary health directive, something to ensure my wishes were respected if anything ever happened to me. He sat at my kitchen table and went through the language slowly, pointing at sections, explaining each one in that same patient, concerned voice. He mentioned Nadine twice. He mentioned Dr. Aldridge once, said they had spoken informally and that the doctor thought some advanced planning was really appropriate for someone at my stage. I let him talk. I nodded in the places where nodding made sense. What was actually in that folder was not a health directive. It was a petition for emergency guardianship combined with a quitclaim deed transferring my property to an entity called Voss Capital Holdings. Garrett had a notary waiting outside in a car. Her name was Beverly, and she had been hired through Voss's office. I picked up the pen. I signed the documents on every line Garrett pointed to. What he did not see was that I had already removed the original pages from the folder the previous evening. The night before, Garrett had left the folder in his car when he stopped by briefly to drop off some groceries Nadine had sent. He left it on my kitchen counter for 11 minutes while we talked in the backyard. 11 minutes was enough time. I photographed every page, replaced them with clean copies printed on matching paper, and put the folder back exactly as it was. The documents Garrett walked out with that Sunday were photocopies. They looked identical. The signatures were real, but the originals, with the full legal language intact, were already in Philip Arden's office safe. Garrett thanked me at the door. He gave me a handshake that was slightly too firm, the kind a man gives when he is trying to feel like he has accomplished something. He said, "We are going to make sure you're taken care of, Cliff." I said, "I know you will, son." 3 days after that, something happened that changed the weight of the whole situation. Nolan called me on a Thursday evening. He had been running a broader check on Garrett's business history, pulling records from his previous addresses in Dallas and San Antonio. What he found was not just about me. In 2019, a 74-year-old retired school teacher named Harold Givens had sold his property in the Alamo Heights area of San Antonio for well below market value after a period of what his daughter later described to a local reporter as sudden confusion and pressure. The buyer was listed as a holding company. The holding company traced back, through 2 shell layers, to Lionel Voss. Garrett Pruitt had been the mortgage broker who handled the transaction. The Givens family had filed a complaint with the Texas Real Estate Commission. The complaint was still open. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after Nolan told me that. I thought about Harold Givens. I thought about whether there were others. A man does not build a system like this from scratch on the first try. There is always a test run. There is always someone who came before. This was no longer just about my house or my name on a mailbox. Garrett had done this before with someone who did not have 30 years of financial investigation behind him. Someone who did not know what to look for. Someone who lost. I was not going to be the second name on that list. And if I could help it, there would not be a third. I called Nolan back and told him to pull every transaction Garrett had touched in the last 5 years. Every LLC, every holding company, every property that had changed hands with his name anywhere near the paperwork. Then I made one more call to a contact I still had at the Harris County District Attorney's Office. Not to report anything yet, just to let someone know I was building something. The following Friday, Garrett called to tell me he and Nadine had arranged a long weekend for me at a lake retreat outside of Bastrop. No phone, no TV, just rest and fresh air. He said it like he was giving me a gift. He even offered to help me pack a bag. said Nadine had already called ahead to confirm the reservation. His voice had a particular quality to it, the way a man sounds when he has already decided how a situation is going to go and he is just waiting for the other person to catch up. I said it sounded fine. I told him I could use the rest. I drove to Bastrop. I checked in at the retreat under my own name, ate dinner in the small dining room, went back to my cabin and waited until 10 p.m. Then I got in my car and drove to a motel off Highway 71 about 2 miles from my house in Houston. The drive took just under 2 hours. I checked in under my name, set up my laptop on the small desk by the window and opened the camera feed. I had installed 6 cameras on the property over the previous 3 weeks. Garrett had actually been the one who suggested the security system back in November, said it would give Nadine peace of mind knowing I had coverage around the house. He had even recommended the brand. What he did not know was that I had set up a second feed independent of the home network, routed through a separate cellular modem I had mounted inside the garage wall behind the old pegboard. That feed went directly to my laptop and had nothing to do with the system Garrett could access. By 9 a.m. Saturday, Garrett was in my driveway. He arrived in his Tahoe with a locksmith in a white van behind him. I watched on the screen as the locksmith unloaded his case and went to work on the front door. Garrett stood on the porch with his hands in his jacket pockets, checking his phone every few minutes. By 11 a.m., every lock on the house had been replaced with a new smart lock system, sleek silver hardware, the kind that runs on an app. My original brass deadbolts, the ones I had installed in 1997 and maintained ever since, were sitting in a cardboard box on the porch. At noon, a man with a clipboard arrived. He walked through the rooms for about 40 minutes, making notes, measuring doorways, photographing the kitchen and the bathrooms. I recognized the type immediately. He was doing a pre-sale assessment. Then a truck from a real estate office pulled up, and 2 people got out with a for sale sign. They pushed it into the front lawn, right in the middle of Norma's rose bed. She had planted those roses in 2001. She spent 3 weekends getting the soil right. She had a whole system for how she watered them. I watched all of that on a 7-inch screen and did not move. Then came the part I still think about. A worker in a gray t-shirt walked up to the mailbox at the end of the driveway. He had a screwdriver. He unscrewed the Holt nameplate from the front of the box, looked at it for a second, the way you look at something you're about to throw away, and dropped it into a small cardboard box he was carrying. That nameplate had been on that mailbox since 1991. Norma's Christmas cards came to that box. Nadine's report cards came to that box. When I was traveling for work, I used to call home and ask Norma if anything interesting had come in the mail, and she would read me the return addresses like she was reading a list of old friends. I sat in that motel room and did not move for a while. I want to be honest about that moment. It was not the tracker that broke something loose in me. It was not the forged documents or the fraudulent deed, or even knowing that Garrett had rehearsed this same play on a 74-year-old retired school teacher in San Antonio. It was a man in a gray t-shirt dropping a nameplate into a cardboard box like it was nothing. I let them finish. I let everything settle. Then I opened my email and sent 3 messages. The first was to Philip Arden, confirming that the fraudulent deed had almost certainly been filed and asking him to alert the title insurance company. The second was to Nolan, telling him it was time to bring the Harris County contact in formally. The third was a 1-paragraph message to a forensic auditor at a title insurance firm that Philip had put me in touch with 2 weeks earlier. Then I assembled Nadine's packet. I had been building it for weeks. Printed copies of Nolan's financial report on Garrett's debt to Voss, the photograph of the GPS tracker under my bumper, a printed transcript of the audio from my kitchen table with the key sections highlighted, the documentation on Voss Capital Holdings and its connection to the failed deed filing, the information on Harold Givens and the open complaint with the Texas Real Estate Commission, and the business registry showing that Voss Capital Holdings was not registered in the state of Texas, which meant every document bearing that name was legally unrecordable. I put everything in a padded envelope, sealed it, and addressed it to Nadine's work address, not her home, her work where Garrett would not see it arrive. I included 1 index card, it said. Read this when you're alone, then call me when you're ready. I love you, Dad. I dropped it in the mail slot at a post office on my way back through Bastrop the next morning 2 days before I drove home. I drove home on Monday evening and parked my truck on the street in front of my own house. The for sale sign was still in Norma's rose bed. The new smart locks were on the doors. The alt nameplate was gone from the mailbox. From the outside, it looked like a house that already belonged to someone else. I got out, walked up the driveway in the early evening light, and stood at the front door with my original brass key. I already knew it would not work. I slid it in anyway. It did not turn. The Ring camera above the door chirped. A second later, Garrett's voice came through the small speaker, tight and clipped. "Cliff, what are you doing here?" The retreat is not over until Wednesday. I came home, Garrett. I said. I was not looking at the camera. I was looking at the door. You need to leave. The property has been transferred. I have the paperwork. The deed you filed, I said, is attached to an entity that is not registered in the state of Texas. Voss Capital Holdings does not exist in the Harris County Business Registry. The title company flagged it Friday afternoon, and the property itself has been sitting inside an irrevocable trust since last Thursday, 72 hours before you filed anything. Silence on the speaker. The kind that has weight to it. Leave, Cliff. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, I said. I walked to the porch swing, sat down, and poured coffee from the thermos I had brought from the motel. Garrett arrived in about 11 minutes. He came in fast, tires loud on the driveway, door open before the Tahoe fully stopped. He had the folder in his hand, the one with the documents I had signed. Holding it like it meant something, he started talking before he reached the porch. His voice had lost the careful softness. What was underneath it was not pretty. I have your signature on every page. I have a notary stamp. You signed this yourself, Cliff, in your own kitchen? You cannot walk that back. I'm not walking anything back, I said. The signatures are real. The entity on the deed is not. That is not my problem, Garrett. That is yours. He took 2 steps toward me. You think you can just sit there and act like you did not know what you were signing. You're 68 years old and you missed 3 doctor's appointments and left your garage door open 6 times. I have documentation. You have a file you built, I said. There is a difference. A black SUV turned into the driveway behind his Tahoe. Nolan Vick got out first, then a man in a gray suit I had not met in person before, the forensic auditor from the title insurance company. 2 Harris County Sheriff's deputies came in a separate vehicle and parked at the curb. The auditor introduced himself to Garrett with the flat, unhurried manner of someone who has delivered bad news to difficult people many times before. Mr. Pruitt, we received a formal title flag on a quitclaim deed filing made Friday morning. The transferring entity, Voss Capital Holdings, is not registered in Texas. The deed is unrecordable. Additionally, the property was placed inside a restricted irrevocable trust prior to the filing date, which means the chain of title was broken before your documents were ever submitted. Garrett looked at the auditor. Then he looked at Nolan. Then he looked at me. You set this up, he said. I followed the paperwork, I said. That is all I ever did. He turned back to the auditor and his voice went up. He signed voluntarily. I have a notarized document. Whatever trust he created after the fact does not cancel a valid signature. The trust was created before your filing, not after, the auditor said. And the notarized document you have is a photocopy. The original pages were removed and replaced prior to signing. The originals are currently held by the property owner's attorney of record. Garrett went quiet. The folder dropped slightly in his hand. Nolan stepped forward and handed the deputies a USB drive containing the audio recording from my kitchen, the financial documentation on the $340,000 loan from Lionel Voss, and the open complaint file from the Texas Real Estate Commission regarding the Givens property transaction in San Antonio. The deputies had already been briefed. This was not a surprise to anyone except Garrett. One of the deputies asked Garrett to come with them for questioning on charges of fraudulent deed filing and elder financial exploitation. He did not resist. He stood there for a moment looking at the house like he was trying to remember something, and then he walked to the cruiser. I was still on the porch swing when Nadine's car pulled up. She had driven straight from her office. She had the padded envelope in her hand, already opened. Her eyes were red, but her face was steady. She walked up the driveway and sat down on the porch steps without saying anything for a while. Then she said, "The Givens family. That man in San Antonio." "Yes," I said. "He did it before." "Yes." She looked at the rosebed. The for sale sign was still there. "Can we take that out right now if you want?" I said. We pulled it out together and left it against the garage wall. Then Nadine went to her car and came back with a screwdriver. She had stopped at my garage on her way to the porch and picked up the Holt nameplate from the shelf where I had left it. She handed it to me without a word. I put it back on the mailbox myself, tightened both screws, stepped back and looked at it in the early evening light. It looked exactly right. They will tell you that after 60 you are a depreciating asset, that your judgment is slipping, your memory is unreliable, that someone younger should probably be making the decisions. They will frame your independence as a burden and your paid-off property as a problem waiting to be managed. The people who say this are usually the ones who have never built anything themselves. Document your life. Keep your records clean and current. Know what you own and how it is protected, and never mistake someone's patience for kindness, because the men who come slowly are the ones who have done it before. I spent 30 years following paper trails for the federal government. The last one I followed led right back to my own front door. The nameplate is back on the mailbox. The coffee is on every morning at 5 a.m. Nobody is moving me out of this house.